After my surgery, I discovered my life in trash bags at the gate. What my DIL revealed was INCRED. Mary stepped out of the car, a lightweight blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, the cool Midwestern breeze biting at her skin. The world felt foreign after the surgery, the summer sun bright and glaring. As she struggled to walk, each step reminded her of the fragility of her body. Yet, nothing could prepare her for what lay ahead. Trash bags overflowed at her front gate, a mountain of her possessions, carelessly discarded. Confusion churned in her stomach as she recognized Jessica's slouching handwriting on a hastily scrawled note. How could it have come to this? In her mind, Mary had always been the pillar of her family, the loving grandmother, the doting mother teaching countless children. Now she felt stripped bare, abandoned, walls closing in around her. Would they think of her as a burden moving forward? She approached the bags, her heart racing. What lay beneath the black plastic felt like an excavation of her very soul. Mary tentatively tugged a bag open, the sound of crumpling plastic echoing in the stillness. An old-school photo of her sons, captured in a moment of joy. How odd that it felt like they were the ones looking down at her now, judging her for her failures. Each item she plucked from the bags pushed against the edges of her vulnerability. An unfinished quilt, a forgotten easel, remnants of a passion she had tucked deep within herself. Painting had once lit her soul. Now it lay dormant, overshadowed by the chaos of life. How had she let it get to this? Mary's mind raced with the blurred edges of regret. It had been so easy to lose herself in responsibilities and expectations. A desperate thought flared in her gut. Perhaps if she had been more than just a teacher, if she had embraced art, she might have been worthy of admiration. But what did that make her now? A failure? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jessica's voice drifted back to her mind, always there, always nagging. Had she harbored resentment over the attention Mary received for her achievements? Wouldn't it sting more to see her thrive again? As Mary contemplated the upcoming community art show, uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Could she dust off her easel and unveil her talent? Or would it push Jessica further away? What if her completion of a painting only deepened their rift? Suddenly, a text pinged on Mary's phone, her hands shaking as she fumbled to read it. Jessica's words were frantic but clear. We need to talk. There is something I haven't told you. The knot in Mary's chest tightened painfully. Could another truth come crashing down on her, tearing apart the fragile bond left between them? As she stood amidst the trash bags filled with memories and pain, Mary felt the weight of a silent battle on the verge of eruption. Would their family be consumed by a long-buried resentment, or could it guide them toward understanding? She gripped her phone, the looming question unshakable: what secrets would emerge from the chaos? And would they have the strength to face them together? The trash bags loomed like a dark cloud over Mary's sense of self. Their presence choked her, each plastic knot tied with the weight of years of discarded dreams. She took a deep breath, her resolve flickering like a dying candle. It was time to reclaim not just her possessions but her spirit. With trembling fingers, Mary sifted through the contents of the first bag. Every item brought searing memories. A child's drawing now faded, an award she received for community service, a scarf she knitted for a chilly winter. They were irreplaceable, yet somehow they felt tainted by shame. Had she truly poured all her energy into fulfilling everyone else's expectations, neglecting her own desires? The coolness of the fabric and the roughness of the paper brought her thoughts to the art supplies safely tucked in her attic. Dust had settled over them for too long, just like her creative drive. Maybe it was time to bring them out. Perhaps art wasn't merely a recreational pursuit. It could be her lifeline, a chance to reforge her identity. Mary envisioned her easel propped up by the window, sunlight streaming in, illuminating fresh strokes of vibrant color. She hesitated, doubt creeping in. What if the local art community was colder than the summer sun? What if her rekindled passion was ridiculed or dismissed? But the thought of letting the remnants of her talent gather dust felt unbearable. If she didn't try, wouldn't that be a true failure? The hum of her phone broke her reverie, bringing her back to the present. A message from Jessica. Blood rushed to Mary's head as a mixture of dread and determination flooded her being. She had to confront the pain that simmered beneath the surface. Ignoring it had poisoned their relationship, leaving her feeling alienated. Responding took effort. As she crafted her reply, each finger tap felt like a step towards healing. Let's meet. But I need the truth, no more silence. As she hit send, a rush of adrenaline swept through her. It was a small declaration of her intent to reclaim authority over her life. The threshold of confrontation loomed before her, and she barely breathed as it approached. What secrets lay buried within her daughter-in-law's words? Mary's heart thumped loudly, beating against the fear of the unknown. What if this was the chance for catharsis, to dispel years of misunderstandings? Or would it unravel into chaos, deepening the chasm that now separated them? Amid the chaos of the trash, she spotted her old easel, untouched yet alive with potential. The realization struck like lightning: her journey did not have to hinge on their conversation alone. The confrontation with Jessica could ignite a new chapter, one that might blend her voice back into the family tapestry, creating something vibrant and unapologetically her own. It was now or never. With renewed conviction, Mary decided right there amid the discarded remnants of her past, she would reclaim her aspirations and honor her creativity. No longer would she conflate her identity with sacrifices made for others. The art show was approaching, and she would step into the light not for anyone else but for her. As fingers brushed against the splintered wood of the easel, a rush of warmth surged through her veins. She breathed deeply, feeling the closure of one chapter and the thrill of a new beginning. But with that thrill came an underlying current of anxiety. What would Jessica reveal during their talk? Would it be a catalyst for understanding? Or would it push their already frayed relationship into a spiraling chaos? Determined to embrace whatever truth came her way, Mary picked up a paintbrush she had long neglected, its bristles worn yet resolute. The moment had arrived to paint a new narrative, but first, she had to face her own fears head-on. As she prepared to begin, the haunting question lingered: how would she wield her brush against the unfolding reality of a family on the brink? Mary stood before her easel, paintbrush in hand, though the weight of impending revelations tied knots within her stomach. She dipped the brush into an array of colors, each one vibrant yet unsettling, mirroring the turmoil she felt inside. Would her art truly flourish again, or would it fall flat, an echo of her past failures? She made the first stroke. It was tentative, a whisper on the canvas, but it struck a chord within her, a flicker of joy she hadn't anticipated. The colors began to merge and morph, little patterns emerging as if they were running away from the weight of her insecurities. Creating felt like an act of rebellion against the remnants of her own self-doubt. With every brushstroke, her pulse quickened. It was not merely about paint. It was a physical manifestation of her desire to break free from the shackles of constraint. In that moment, she realized art could be cathartic. It didn't demand perfection, only honesty. As she lost herself in creativity, the fear of Jessica's impending truth slipped slightly from her mind. But it hovered like a specter, waiting. What would they discuss? What unspoken barriers loomed between their hearts? The very essence of confrontation made her chest tighten. It echoed the fears she had buried beneath layers of neglect. Deep down, she acknowledged that this artistic venture had more than mere significance. It could be a coping mechanism, a way to channel her feelings of unease into something constructive. Each splash of color represented her unyielding quest for clarity. After several hours, Mary stepped back, scanning the canvas. It was chaotic yet beautiful, an abstract expression of turmoil woven into strands of hope. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of accomplishment. Most artists chased the kind of satisfaction only born from the trenches of emotional conflict. Yet, a darker shadow lurked, reminding her of the unresolved tension about to unfold in her life. A quick glance at the clock dulled her excitement. She had to meet Jessica soon. Turning away from the easel felt like ripping herself from the world she had just created. With a sigh, Mary carefully laid her brushes down, hesitant to break the mood she had nurtured. The prospect of seeing Jessica now loomed more ominously than before. What awaited her? Was this encounter going to open avenues, linking them as family, or create a collision that would leave her feeling more fragmented than ever? The relationship with her daughter-in-law had always felt fraught, overshadowed by misunderstanding, guilt, and the need for validation. Mary looked out the window one last time, where the world outside buzzed with life and certainty. She thought about stepping into that vibrancy, but she was aware that her journey within was far from done. Reflecting on the myriad conversations that could occur, she wondered what could change if she chose courage over fear in their discussion. As she clasped her hands together, a moment of clarity emerged. This encounter could become a crucial turning point not just for her relationship with Jessica, but also for her. She could unearth truths, explore vulnerability, and open doors that had long been locked. With resolute determination, Mary prepared to leave the comfort of her cozy creative space for the uncertainty that awaited. But the question nagged her as she departed: how could she emerge unscathed when confronting the tangled threads of family loyalty and hidden truths? The art she had created would be a backdrop to the main event, but would it be enough to guide her through the emotional storm ahead? Mary arrived at the small cafe where she had agreed to meet Jessica, acutely aware of the tightening in her chest. The air was charged with an unspoken tension, a weight she felt pressing down both on her and in the space around her. On one hand, she craved connection. On the other, she feared whatever truths might surface. She took a seat at a corner table, her fingers tapping rhythmically against her own warm skin, a nervous habit she thought she had settled. The cafe was lively, the sounds of laughter and chatter wrapping around her like a soft blanket, yet it did nothing to ease the turmoil within. As she glanced over the menu, it felt almost prop-like, a way to distract herself from the more pressing matters at hand. Jessica arrived shortly after, her presence commanding yet unsure. "Hey!" Mary's forced cheerfulness felt like an amateur performer on a stage. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," Jessica replied, her smile hesitant as she sat down across from Mary. The brief silence that followed was heavy, charged with expectations, fears, and the enormity of needing to address their fractured relationship. Mary searched Jessica's eyes for signs of her thoughts, desperate to gauge the direction the conversation might take. Would they skirt around the issues yet again, or finally face them head-on? "How have you been?" Mary asked, the words spilling out as a clumsy icebreaker, trying to warp the silence that enveloped them. "I've been okay, busy with work," Jessica said, her voice drifting. "You know how it is." Yes, Mary thought. She did know how it felt to be busy yet lost, inundated by obligations that obscured deeper connections. "Right," she responded, aware that small talk was insufficient as a shield. The tension thickened, each second a reminder of how long they had danced around the real issues. Finally, fueled by a surge of courage, Mary pressed on. "I think we need to talk." Jessica stiffened, her gaze dropping to the table as if the wood might provide comfort from the turbulence above. "About what?" Her tone held disbelief but hinted at anticipation. "About us." "I've been reflecting." Mary took a deep breath, steadying herself against the weight of vulnerability. The words trembled on her tongue. "There's a lot we haven't said. Things that matter." Jessica met her gaze, an inquisitive spark igniting the early shadows in her dark eyes. I mean about your relationship with David," Mary cut in, her heart racing. "What you've been going through." Jessica's demeanor shifted slightly. The defensive walls she had built were rising, bracing for a confrontation. "Either we talk about it or we don't, Mary. Which one do you want?" "I want to understand, to be closer. Whatever walls have existed between us need to come down." She pushed further, a risky play. For a moment, silence settled like a damp fog, impenetrable yet strangely liberating. In that shared stillness, both women pondered what they stood to lose or gain. "You think that's possible?" Jessica's voice barely broke through the quiet. Mary felt her throat tighten, realizing that this moment held the key to not only their future, but also her own healing. "I think it has to be, if we want any chance of moving forward together." As Jessica absorbed this, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, leaving Mary with a sensation both thrilling and unsettling. The boundaries of their relationship remained fragile, yet a profound opportunity for connection lay ahead. Before she could speak, Mary caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. A figure stepped into the cafe, their expression shadowing the familiar contours of her past. The moment hung thick in the air, heavy with rediscovered complexities. Who had just entered, and how would they factor into the unfolding narrative? Dread pulsed through Mary. This encounter could alter everything she had just begun to confront. Would this stranger bring chaos or clarity to a delicate moment? Mary felt the sudden chill creep through her as she turned her head, her instincts flaring. The sight of the newcomer sent a jolt through her system, a visceral reminder of a past she thought she had moved beyond. It was Tom, her first love, the kind of person whose shadow still lingered over her decisions. He scanned the cafe, looking lost before he caught her eye. For a brief moment, time in the cafe suspended, the distant tones of laughter and the clang of cups muted into nothingness. The room contracted around them as recognition struck. "Great, just what I needed," she muttered under her breath. Her stomach tightened, an unwelcome knot forming as memories surged. Jessica noticed her abrupt shift, her puzzlement deepening. "Mary? Are you okay?" The question pierced through, yet Mary felt frozen, her voice trapped beneath the weight of history and unresolved feelings. She had to pay attention to her own emotions, she realized. Confronting the uncertainty bubbling within was equally essential as the conversation she sought with Jessica. "What do I do?" she thought, her mind racing. Tom's mere presence could easily derail their discussion, obliterating the courage she had mustered. In an impulsive act of resolve, she straightened her back, unwilling to let this unanticipated distraction dictate her narrative. She would not sacrifice the moment for a ghost. "I need to stay grounded, stay present," she reminded herself. "I am fine," Mary said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let us keep talking." As she refocused on Jessica, the tension in her body didn't entirely dissipate. Jessica's gaze flickered between Mary and Tom, confusion mingling with concern. "We were talking about us," Jessica ventured, the struggle of articulating unspoken pain surfacing between them. "Yes, we were," Mary said, forcing her focus. "But I don't want to skirt around it anymore." She exhaled, relishing the feeling of speaking her truth. "I want to know what you need from your relationship. Are you truly happy?" The straightforwardness of her own question surprised her. It pierced through the haze of confusion she often wrapped herself in, showcasing a growth spurred by years of silent suffering. Jessica paused, her brow furrowing as she processed the inquiry, nudging something deep within her. I don't think I am happy, but I don't know what to change. Is it David? Or is it something deeper?" Mary pressed, feeling a growing urgency as Jessica's walls began to crumble around her determination. With each question, the urgency in Mary spurred her forward into her own vulnerability. She could stand firm against Tom's presence, while still being anchored in her current reality. A reconciliation with her past would not define her or this conversation. It would only give context. A flicker of understanding passed between them, emboldening Mary as she leaned in, ready to push past the boundaries she had lived within for so long. "We can figure this out together, but you have to be honest with yourself." Jessica hesitated, the weight of her fears evident. "Maybe I'm scared of failing. Maybe we are just too different now. Or maybe it's time to redefine what you need," Mary offered, her heart racing with the potential of their exchange. As she watched Jessica wrestle with her emotions, she was struck by the serendipity of the moment. Here she was, grappling with her own fears while simultaneously standing as a pillar for Jessica. But even as she felt a wave of empowerment sweep over her, Tom's presence lurked at the edges of her consciousness, a reminder that the past would always try to encroach upon the present. She needed to address that part of herself later perhaps, but for now she was here, committed to navigating this emotional terrain. In the distance, Tom seemed to search for something, perhaps clarity in the crowded cafe, unaware of the chaos he threatened. Mary understood with a terrifying clarity that her next step would not just involve redefining her relationship with Jessica, but also confronting the lingering emotions Tom ignited within her. Would she be able to do both? The path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was becoming clearer. The moment of truth was approaching. Would she finally confront her past, or allow it to linger like an unfinished thought? Mary's pulse quickened as she watched Jessica grapple with her feelings, her friend's silence, a painful stillness in contrast to the brewing storm inside her. She could almost hear the ticking clock of her own unresolved emotions echoing like a metronome, urging her toward urgency. Tom's presence loomed, a specter at the edge of her consciousness, but she had work to do here, right in front of her. "What if we approach this from a different angle?" Mary suggested, desperate to redirect the energy of the moment into something actionable. What do you love about David? What drew you to him in the first place? The question seemed to rattle Jessica from her own thoughts, and a flicker of remembrance played across her features. Supportive, you know? He always believes in me. Then maybe it's about communicating that you need something more. Something beyond support. An idea brewed inside Mary, formulated by her own lessons learned from years of navigating her own fears. You deserve to have someone beside you who also challenges you to grow, to explore. Have you thought about what that looks like for you? Mary's mind sparked with her own recollections of past discussions, the way she used to dodge her own entanglements, mirroring what she saw in Jessica now. The trend of avoiding painful conversations had led her down some dark paths, and the weight of that past pushed her to guide Jessica differently, to encourage the exploration rather than avoidance. Jessica's brow knit tighter, but Mary could see the resistance begin to soften, replaced by curiosity. I guess I just didn't want to rock the boat. And are you happy living in a stagnant pond? It sounds nice superficially but lacks the depth and movement that life offers. Mary pushed gently, finding her own voice steadier with each moment that passed. Taking the plunge may frighten you, but it might be what you truly need. I struggled with that too, you know? As Laura expressed her thoughts, she reclaimed authority over her narrative. The chatter around them faded further into the background as Mary realized that each moment of vulnerability she shared with Jessica made her own barriers shake loose. The intention behind her words was as much for her friend as it was for her. Jessica opened her mouth to respond but paused as if she needed to sift through her emotions like fine grains of sand trickling through her fingers. I wish I had that kind of courage. You do, Mary replied, warmth flooding her words. I'm still finding mine just like all of us. The shift was palpable. Jessica's walls crumbled a little more as she leaned closer. They began to generate understanding rather than avoidance together, strengthening their bond. Yet, from the periphery, Tom shifted through the cafe, his aura unsettlingly magnetic. Mary struggled to keep her focus. She was amidst a growing emotional upheaval, and needed to sort her thoughts without the chaos of her past. Tom's presence doesn't control me, she asserted to herself silently. She would not allow him to influence her conversation or make her question her choices. Jessica's eyes darted over to Tom too. Do you think he's here to talk to you? The question brought a fresh surge of intensity through Mary's veins. She had imagined confrontation countless times, but as she felt the weight of Jessica's trust beside her, she realized she had to confront Tom, not only for herself but also to establish a new narrative forward, rather than retreating into her old fears. I don't know, but I'm not ready for any distractions, Mary decided, infusing herself with resolve. I have to put my emotional development first for both our sakes. With a deep breath, she summoned courage she didn't know she had. Can you hold on for a moment? I need to take care of something, she said to Jessica. As Mary rose from her seat, every step toward Tom felt like a radical act of reclaiming her identity. The air grew sharper and the cafe sounds resumed their hollow rhythm. She pushed through the ambient noise, each footfall echoing her newfound determination. Thomas' figure grew clearer until he could no longer only be an echo of her past. Tom, she said, her voice surprisingly firm. We need to talk. As the cafe hummed around them, a confrontation brewed that would demand confrontation of everything she had been avoiding. Would she find closure? Or would it spiral back into old hauntings? The uncertainty simmered, promising that whatever lay ahead could either help her further define her future, or pull her back into the shadows she had been fighting to escape. Mary locked her gaze on Tom, her heart hammering in her chest. For so long his presence had been a shadow, looming large in the backdrop of her life. Today she would bring him into the light. Standing before him felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, the wind rushing around her as she prepared to jump. Mary, Tom replied, his tone neutral, masking any hint of surprise or remorse. What's going on? The familiarity of his voice sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't the boy she had known. That boy was buried beneath layers of disappointment, unrealized dreams and silent apologies. She could feel every heartbeat thrumming within her, invigorating her resolve, pouring down a wellspring of courage that she had never fully embraced before. Why are you here? She asked, her voice steady but low. You can't keep showing up when it's convenient for you. I need you to leave. Tom furrowed his brow, and for a moment, Mary saw the flicker of defensiveness. I just wanted to talk, to clear the air after everything that happened. Staying focused, Mary fought against the urge to retreat. What air is there to clear? You left. You chose your path and I'm finally on mine. I need you to go. Each syllable felt like a victory, resonating within the fragile shell of her past. She had rehearsed these lines, but now they tumbled from her lips with an authenticity that startled her. The old Mary would have crumbled, sought approval, or made excuses. This Mary was different. She was emerging with clarity, unwilling to recede into discomfort and ambiguity. Tom stepped forward, attempting to close the distance between them, but Mary instinctively stepped back, reasserting her boundaries. I want you to understand, she continued, her conviction growing. I'm not that girl anymore. I've spent too much time trying to make sense of your choices and how they affected me. I refuse to let your actions define my reality any longer. A silence enveloped them, heavy with unsaid words. Tom's expression shifted to something almost vulnerable, perhaps regretful, but Mary didn't allow herself to be swayed. The insistence to reclaim her narrative flickered brightly, threatening to extinguish any notions of his impending influence. Mary, please, he implored, desperation lacing his voice. I didn't mean for things to end up like this. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you walked away, Mary shot back, surprised at the intensity of her own words. Do you know how much damage that did? How it felt to see you moving forward while I was still stuck? With those words she uncovered the truth. Not just to Tom but to herself, the aching reality of feeling trapped by someone else's choices. It had tethered her, but now she could see the ropes fraying, threads loosening. I'm working on myself now, she said, her tone softer yet firm. I won't let you hold power over me anymore. Tom opened his mouth to respond, but Mary knew this was her moment. She had spent years internalizing his mistakes. It was time to release herself from that burden. She turned on her heel, only to glance back one last time. I hope you find the growth you need, but it will be without me. The resolve surged through her veins as she walked back toward Jessica, leaving Tom in the clamor of the cafe, retreating from a past that no longer belonged in her future. As she settled back into her seat, Jessica's wide eyes mirrored a mix of admiration and disbelief. You did it, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the bustling crowd. You stood up to him. I'm still standing up for myself, Mary replied, a light sheen of triumph enveloping her. It's just the beginning, though. There is so much more to untangle. As the conversation continued, Mary found herself contemplating her journey. What other parts of her life needed confronting? What steps remained in her path to fulfillment? Yet, even as clarity began to unfold, a gnawing question echoed in her mind. Was Tom truly gone, or would he reappear, seeking to weave himself back into the fabric of her life? The prospect lingered, both enticing and unnerving, challenging her newfound determination to stay the course she had chosen. A fresh wave of uncertainty washed over her, bubbling with possibilities as she grappled with what this newfound strength would demand of her next. Would she be ready to face the other shadows lurking in the corners of her life, those she had yet to confront? Sitting in the cafe, the aftertaste of her confrontation lingering like bittersweet coffee, Mary felt the weight of not just her past interactions with Tom but all the implicit leftovers of her life waiting to be dealt with. Jessica's excitement dulled as the silence thickened around them, drawing Mary into a deeper reflection. What's next? She asked herself, feeling an itch she couldn't scratch. She had carved out a moment of empowerment, yet it was evident that layers of her past still clung to her. Marie, are you still with me? Jessica's voice slipped through the fog of Mary's thoughts. Yeah, sorry. Just thinking about everything, Mary replied, forcing a smile. I guess I'm realizing just how much I need to confront. Like what? Jessica nudged gently, sensing an underlying tempest brewing. Everything, Mary replied, allowing herself to explore the depths of her turmoil. It's not just Tom. It's the remnants of my old life, jobs that didn't fit, friendships I've outgrown, dreams I left behind. Have you ever felt that nagging sensation like you're standing still while the world speeds ahead? Jessica nodded, her eyes full of empathy. Absolutely. It's hard when you know you need change but the steps look daunting. Mary took a sip of her drink, the warm liquid offering momentary comfort. I feel like I'm at this juncture where setting boundaries with Tom was just the surface. If I can face him, I should be able to face the rest of it all, right? Right, Jessica affirmed. You're already stronger than you know. What's the worst that could happen if you put yourself out there? The question hung in the air, resonating with a haunting relevance. Mary recalled all the missed opportunities, and with each recollection, a voice inside urged her to tear down the walls she had built. Could she summon the courage to confront the job she loathed, the creative passion she'd ignored, or the friendships that had faded into mere shadows? A tinge of hope began to stir in her, mingling with lingering fear. The cafe crowd erupted with laughter, pulling Mary out of her introspection. She sensed a shift within her, a determination sparking brighter than before. It simmered beneath the surface of her previous doubt, waiting for the right moment to compel her into action. I want to revisit my painting, Mary blurted out, surprising even herself. I used to love it, but I haven't picked up a brush in years. It's like I abandoned a part of myself. Then do it. Jessica urged enthusiastically. Paint again. That could be your starting point. Yeah, but what if it's not good enough? Or what if it's not what I want? Mary hesitated, an internal battle laying bare her uncertainty. Who cares? It's about you, not anyone else, Jessica challenged, placing a hand on Mary's arm. And if something doesn't feel right, you can always pivot. This journey is all about exploration. The excitement flooded back, and Mary felt a swell of resistance soften within her. Maybe I can plan a little art day this weekend. Just me, some canvases, and an open mind. Exactly, you have to be okay with messy beginnings, Jessica concluded, her eyes lighting up with encouragement. It's not about perfection but a step toward reclaiming joy. As Mary absorbed Jessica's words, the notion of reclaiming herself resonated with a strength she hadn't tapped into before. The days of indecision felt behind her, as though a curtain had been drawn back, revealing a stage of possibilities just waiting to unfold. Yet, amidst this newfound optimism, unease flickered at the peripheral. Would Tom stay away for good? What if he came knocking again, seeking to disrupt her reconnecting with herself? The thought churned in her mind like a storm cloud brewing, and as she considered each potential confrontation looming on her horizon, she steeled her resolve. Let us do this, she whispered to herself, her heart racing with a blend of anticipation and apprehension. It was time to take decisive action. But would she truly have the strength to confront the pivotal decisions that lay ahead? The memory of Tom could just be the beginning of a much larger reckoning, and amid the stirring of excitement, an ache of uncertainty loomed. Would she rise to meet each challenge, or falter into the comfort of familiarity once more? Mary returned home with a new resolve pulsing through her. The conversation with Jessica echoed in her mind like an anthem of encouragement. She had purposefully avoided her painting for too long, allowing her fears to keep her from exploring that creative facet of herself. Art had once been her refuge, a place where brushstrokes became therapy and colors told the untold tales of her heart. In the following days, the anticipation enlivened her mundane routines. Each morning she would glance at her old easel tucked away in the corner of her living room, half hidden beneath a blanket of dust. The canvases leaned against the wall, some blank, some partially finished, each one bearing its own whispers of abandonment. The sight sparked a growing determination within Mary, a reminder of the gifts she had neglected. When the weekend finally arrived, Mary gathered her supplies with a cautious excitement. She set up her workspace, laying out brushes, paints, and a fresh canvas as if hosting a long-lost friend. Yet, as she faced the blank expanse before her, a familiar grip of doubt tightened around her insides. What if the passion that used to flow freely had dried up completely? Taking a deep breath, she dipped her brush into the vibrant blue paint. The first stroke was tentative, a whisper of color against white. It didn't feel like a masterpiece, but it didn't have to be. This was for her, an act of reclaiming her identity. The rhythm of the strokes became meditative, and with each layer, she felt a little more alive. Something shifted as her brush flew across the canvas, as if the colors were transforming her, infusing her spirit with courage. Flasking to a recall of her past self, she lost herself in the shapes emerging from that space, swirls of hope and patches of dark worries, intertwined but not defining her. Painting no longer felt like an obligation to create perfection. It became a ritual of freedom, a declaration of her agency. Hours flew by unnoticed, When she stepped back to observe her emerging piece, her eyes widened with realization. Each brushstroke was a step away from her fears, from Tom, and toward her reclaiming joy. She had remembered not just how to paint, but how to nurture her spirit. But in the back of her mind, like a persistent shadow, the thought of Tom loomed large again. Would this moment of inspiration shatter under the weight of his potential disruption? Just as her newfound sense of self began to solidify, the question of confrontation surfaced again. Did she dare rewrite her narrative truly? As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone buzzed, jolting her from her reverie. It was a message one she hadn't expected. "We need to talk." It was from Tom. The familiar pit formed in her stomach, a blend of dread and defiance. Mary felt the adrenaline surge as her fingers hovered over the screen. What did he want now? The art before her beckoned, a symbol of her will. The decision loomed ahead, darkening her newfound radiance. She could either carry on her path of reinvention or dive back into the chaos that had plagued her for so long. In that moment, a new determination surfaced, entwining with her excitement. Would she answer, risking the chance to return to the role she was fighting to escape? The echoing invitation of creativity wrestled with the impending confrontation of her past, and the fear of slipping back into familiar patterns. As she stared at the unfinished canvas, she couldn't shake the urgency of what lay ahead. Would she rise to defend her space, her art, her identity against Tom's reappearance? The stakes had never been clearer. She stood on the precipice of a pivotal decision, poised between her liberation and the toxicity she wished to leave behind. What would she choose? As the tension coiled tighter, Mary's heart raced with both dread and resolve, setting the stage for a definitive confrontation she could no longer avoid. Mary stood in the soft glow of her art studio, the smell of acrylic paint hanging in the air like the remnants of a powerful storm. A symphony of color sprang from her brush, each stroke birthing the embodiment of her rebirth. The canvas was not simply an image, it was her declaration of triumph, a testament to her journey from despair to discovery. Gone were the feelings of inadequacy that had held her captive for so long. She was a force of creativity, reclaiming her identity piece by piece. As she wiped her brow, a sudden ping from her phone jolted her awareness back to the present. The familiar name flickered on the screen, Tom. An unsettling mix of apprehension and resolve settled within her. Here lay the remnants of her past, poised to test her newfound strength. This wasn't just a message. It was an invitation to revisit the chaos that had once dictated her reality. And yet, she had transformed significantly since their last encounter. "I am no longer afraid of the shadows," she whispered to herself, summoning the determination that had fueled her journey thus far. Rather than folding under pressure, she would stand firm, confronting the connections that had previously tethered her to fear. In a moment of quiet conviction, she tapped her phone and replied, "Let us talk. But know that I am not the person you once knew." The thrill that surged within Mary was akin to the vibrant colors dancing across her canvas. She had spent years in silence, allowing the weight of others' expectations to mold her identity. Now, with her artistic expression flowing freely, she felt a sense of control that fostered her sense of self. She had ceased to be merely a caretaker for everyone else's needs. She was reclaiming her narrative. A few hours later, the sound of her doorbell shattered her solitude, sending a ripple of anticipation through her. As she opened the door, Tom stood there, his familiar silhouette both magnetic and disconcerting. She studied his expression. The uncertainty in his eyes was a glaring contrast to the confidence she had just embraced within herself. "Hey," he greeted, his voice almost hesitant. "I didn't expect to see you like this." She took a moment, grounding herself in the space she had cultivated. "This is who I've always been, Tom." "I think you just never saw it," she replied, her tone steady but firm. The shift in her words ignited a fire within her. Confronting him had begun to feel less like a burden and more like a liberation. As they settled into her studio surrounded by vibrant canvases, silence wrapped around them comfortably, yet saturated with unspoken words. The air crackled with energy, a sense that this moment could either reaffirm the boundaries she had established or threaten to pull her back into the shadows. "I wanted to apologize for everything," Tom began, his face serious. "I was confused and made decisions that hurt you." Mary felt an urge to shrink back but dissolved the sensation with her resolve. "Apologies don't undo the past, Tom. but I appreciate the sentiment. The truth is, I've spent too long waiting for you to validate my feelings. I'm done with that. His eyes widened, surprise flickering across his face. So you've really moved on? Yes, I have, she stated with clarity. Moving on isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about acknowledging it and choosing a future that aligns with who I truly want to be. Every word was laced with intent. It was a reconciliation with herself as much as it was with Tom. The conversation unfolded rather unexpectedly, weaving through the fabric of their past, but continually anchoring in the present. Mary found herself communicating the things she had hidden for too long: her needs, her aspirations, and the disappointments that had shadowed her existence. Instead of the pain that once burdened their encounters, clarity reigned supreme. This weekend I began to paint again, she said, a smile creeping onto her lips. Rediscovered a part of me that had been lost in chaos and expectations. And now I want more than just brushes and colors, I want authenticity. Tom nodded, listening intently, something in his demeanor shifting. I can see you've changed a lot, Mary. I just hoped maybe we could find our way back to what we had. The weight of his request hung heavily in the air, mingling with clarity and nostalgia. There's no going back for me, she replied, her voice unwavering. I need to evolve, and that doesn't include returning to old habits or patterns. I deserve relationships that nurture growth, not stifle it. Moments passed and a silence filled the space between them, heavy with the implications of her words. It was a choice she had made not just for herself, but for her sake and the sake of those she truly cared for. Maybe I deserve to learn from this too, Tom finally said, his expression softening. I was too caught up in my own world to realize how it impacted the people I loved. Mary stood boldly at that intersection, where her past met newfound empowerment. I owe it to myself to forge a path that celebrates all the parts of me creatively, emotionally, and relationally. This is my time. As the conversation unfolded, she sensed a shift within herself, a substantial weight lifting not just from her shoulders but from her spirit. Here lay the unfamiliar ground she had been yearning to traverse. With every spoken word, Mary reclaimed authority over her narrative. With each brushstroke on the canvas, a testament to her evolution, she painted her relationship with Tom as it truly was. A chapter worthy of closure, yet expansive in its lessons. When the conversation reached its natural conclusion, Tom acknowledged her journey into self-expression and growth with respect. I wish you nothing but success in your exploration, Mary. I truly am glad you found your passion. Maybe one day we can navigate a different path and revisit what we had as friends. She smiled, a wave of satisfaction washing over her. I'd like that, but only if it's based on mutual respect and accountability. Closing the door behind him, Mary returned to her easel, her heart lightened and her spirit soaring. The past had provided the hues for her painting, but she now held the brush with authority. Life, she realized, was very much like art, messy, chaotic, yet filled with the potential to transform. Now, with her own identity rediscovered, she felt ready to embrace whatever painted her future, confident and ultimately free. And just like that, with vivid colors adorning the canvas before her, Mary emerged not just as a painter, but as the woman she was always meant to become. If you want to follow more journeys of transformation, you need to subscribe now for exclusive, emotional stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to boost the algorithm and help others discover their potential. Comment your thoughts and reactions. What did you think of Mary's journey? Share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering finale. This is the moment to show your support and become part of this incredible community dedicated to personal growth and resilience.